Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever the case may be in your time zone. My name is Heather Hartwick-Gladden, and I am happy to present a video with what we did on our last Tangle Time. I just decided to get courageous and add some video to this because I know some people either can't get online at the times that I have set the classes for, or sessions, I'd rather say, and then some, when you have activity issues and things like that. So I thought, well, why not do a video and see what happens with it. So today we played with Betweed and Jetties. Now I like to pair things together, and I'll talk to you about that as we go along. Starting off with the 4 corner dots, as we traditionally do in the Zentangle method. I do mine about, I don't know what that is, 1/4 of an inch or so in. And then we are going to draw our border lines. Now I prefer to draw mine a little curvy. You can draw yours straight. It's whatever you want. I draw mine curvy because I work on being spontaneously creative, and that's how I'm doing it. Versus normally I would want to draw them straight. So with this one, that's all we're going to do with the pencil for now. We're going to utilize the whole interior space, within our frame for Betweed. And there's a couple ways to do Betweed. We're gonna start off. We're gonna just do it one way, and on the step out, I think I share a variation, because you can either use it to fill in, or you can use it more in a line. But this is how we're gonna do it today. Now, with your pen, and today I'm using a Micron 01. Sometimes I use the Micron PN because they're so nice, and you don't damage the tip either as easily as I do. This one is a little bent, I can see. So we're going to start off with drawing a straight line, because we've got to get this one set up. And essentially we're drawing like an asterisk in the center. So drawing a straight-ish line down the center, or at least close to it. Then crossing that, turning your tile 90 degrees to make that cross section. Then we're going to essentially cross it again. And sometimes what I like to do, so we'll see how good I am this way, because I like to make a nice cross section. Now I'm not going to be so daring. Sometimes what I do is I'll start from the center, from the intersection, and subdivide then these spaces, working to keep it a straight line, as if I drew it from one corner to the next. But inevitably, what I end up doing is, you start here and you're like, whoa, and then it's, way off base. And this is just a little safety measure that I put in. You do not have to do that if you don't want to. But for those like me that like to have some security while we do not have rulers in our Zentangle kits, nor do we use graph paper, because we are courageous tanglers and we just go with it. All right, so we have our setup is ready for Betweed. This is just a really fun one. This one, so I'm going to start here in this section. We're essentially going to do the same stroke in each of the sections, but I'll start with one so that way I can talk about it as we go. Now, what I like to do is trace this left. I'm going to call these spokes, the left spoke. So I start from the bottom, tracing it, traveling all the way up, and then at some point I curve over slightly to the right spoke, and then I usually do this in the same motion, and then I just kind of swoosh my pen back and forth just to add a little bit of weight at the end. Now I'm going to turn my tile because my hand naturally does this curve, and that's very comfortable. And one of the things that we want to do in Zentangle is, especially if we're using it for relaxation, is we want to be comfortable, right? That makes sense. So I'm going to do the same thing from the opposite direction. So I'm coming up, tracing this right spoke, and then curving over And I'm going to hit the line I previously made on the curve. And there is no, of course, right or wrong or anything. So, like I said, I'm hitting it about right there. Then I'm going to go back to the left side. And this is just rinse and repeat. And if you notice, I'm, again, no rhyme or reason. It's also the fun of Zentangle where you get to play with things. I am going just past center. So if you were looking, and I'm doing this, I'm videoing this at an angle here. So if I was going, straight down the middle, my end points are just to the either side of the center. And then we just keep going with this, alternating sides, of course, until you have no more room. Now what I'm going to do is, so I can maybe fit one here, but I'm going to just wait. I like to do that sometimes and then finish the pattern and just see what it looks like, and then sometimes I'll fill in those points. Now, same thing. I'm starting on the left and then going on the right spoke. And this is such a nice one. I really like some of these tangles that just have essentially one stroke, one motion that you're making. And even though, we're alternating sides, which honestly, sometimes that takes concentration. But it's nice because then you can get into the groove of it and, let it take you away. Sometimes I have trouble talking and tangling at the same time. And that's probably a good thing. And this, it doesn't seem to matter the distance between these. That's something that you could certainly play with and see how you like it, whether closer together or further apart like this. And as you can see, mine aren't necessarily consistent from one section to the next, although that is something that I always strive for, is to be consistent. But just as art represents life, or kind of mimics it, same thing. I mean, we can try our darndest to be consistent in all things in our lives, and we are fallible human beings, and we can try as hard as we might, but we are not perfect. And that is one of the things that I love best about the Zentangle method, is that we get to recognize that, practice it, and also realize that it's still okay. A lot of times it's hard for us to accept that, things aren't perfect, we can't do everything perfect, and it's not the end of the world. I know myself sometimes, just because I have that personality style, that I don't like to be wrong. I like to do things right. I don't like to have to go back and correct things. And so this is kind of my therapy in a pen. As you notice, I'm not necessarily moving my tile too much. I'm just making it, again, so that way I can keep my hand in a comfortable position. Also, if you notice, like, for me, towards the end, it's sort of curved, but they kind of flatten out a little bit towards the end. And as you can probably, as you can see here, as you start getting towards the end of the sections, you see this really neat pattern that is emerging. And as I was going through deciding, well, what do I want to do this week? And I was looking through my book of Tangles, and I thought, I haven't done Betweed in a long time, and it'd be really fun to revisit it. And my opinion only is, as you can see it, the pattern emerging, I always think of it kind of looking a little starfishy. And on my site, which is still under construction, it's a slow go. But my aim there at tangleaddicts.com is to categorize the tangles. And so like this one, a lot of them will fit into a number of categories, but this one, and especially in this configuration, it is, like I said, it makes me think of a starfish. And so I put that in the watery category. And so as I was thinking, well, it's August. It's supposed to be summer. We're supposed to be having fun. And we are. So I kind of took a little mental trip, say to the beach, and where you might find starfish, and also might find beach balls. And so as I was thinking, well, what would pair well with Betweed, thinking about summertime, thinking about beaches, and that's where I came up with adding jetties in. So this is our Betweed, so that is pretty much done. We're going to do shading last. So jetties, what I said was we're going to do jetties all around the outside. And jetties is just a series of orbs, different sizes. So we're going to start off with just drawing some orbs. This is one of those, honestly, the bigger the better, because, but up to you. Depends on how much time you want to invest in your tangling. Oops, I got gone off the page, and or off the tile, I should say. I'm starting off with just putting some randomly around, and a lot of times I like to start with bigger ones, with one size, and then fill in with smaller sizes. I keep running myself off of the tile. And you can have them butt up against each other, but like I said, I'm always working to not. I have this issue with I don't want things to look contrived, because I am not an artist by nature. We are all creative beings in one way, shape, or form. My creativeness is more on the musical side, and I do like to do other things, but I'm better at following directions than I am at being spontaneously creative. So that is how one of the things that I use Untangle for is kind of, stretching myself and practicing some ideas. And you hear my kitty in the background. She's decided she's had her breakfast and now she wants some attention. And they say, and it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to go all the way around. This is, these that are kind of more freeform are fun, because then you can play. Actually, I'm going to not have mine go all the way around this time. I'm just going to, like make little clusters as if, these guys just landed here. So I'm going to try that today. And I'll show you some of the other ones that I've done as well. So once you have your orb set, then we're going to put the bands in. So what I like to do, let's see, where do I want to start? Well, I'll just start here. So we want this to look like they're tossed in a pile. And so the bands have a slight curve in them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in the center of this one and just draw a band with a slight curve. And then a little distance away, and it depends on how the size of your orb is. So I'm going to draw 3 bands. Now, in the step out, you'll see that the center band is solid. But sometimes I like to do this because that way I can kind of get this in the center, I can get my curve down, and then I work to color in, you know, or I might like do this, I'm doing this kind of an aura around on the outside of that band. But this way I ensure that I have enough space for a thick band and a thinner band on either side. And there we have it. Then what I do is I turn my tile so that, and I try to turn it and not think about it, so that way it can seem random. And then wherever it lands, then I'll draw another band. And actually, I'm going to leave this little one for now, and I'm going to come here. Now, I think I mentioned, if I didn't mention, there's no mistakes in Zentangle. I call them course corrections, just as in life. You know, when if life hands you, as the old saying says, if the life hands you lemons, make lemonade. So like right here, and I don't know, well, let's see, I'll lean it up a little bit. I have where I've overlapped my orbs. And so what I'm going to do is, that is now going to become the center band. And so I do switch things up a lot of times with, you know, how I'm doing it. This one I decided to do, I do 3 lines and fill in the center. This one, this is my center band, and I'm going to draw outside of that, like that. So essentially I have 4 lines, and then I'm coloring in the middle. And this one I'm going to share with you a technique, we can call it sparkle. So with this, what I'll do is, I'm coloring from the outside in, and then I kind of leave it jagged, but I've left the center just a little open, and so that adds a sparkle or a shine to it. And for some reason on these, I don't do this. I did it on one and I didn't like it, so I filled it in. But you could have this you know, light space go throughout the bands if you want. So like this one, I could have lifted up my pen, and actually I'll do that on another one. Let's see, I'm gonna flip over here, and okay, we'll do this one this way. Make sure I'm keeping my thing in. So I'm gonna, here's my this one I'll do this. So I'll do the center one first, leaving a little gap, and then separating. Same idea, leaving that gap in around the same area. And then this one, so another course correction. And this, or I should say, this is kind of a safety measure in my mind that I'll do sometimes. So because I'm not always drawing things even, because we're human, you know, I have more of a gap here, so just drawing a center line, which will be maybe the center of that thicker band. This way I can start here, I can go down a little bit from it, but I can also go up a lot further, so that way it's kind of centered, if that makes any sense. I have a lot of these things that I do that it makes sense to me, and then translating it out, you know, we shall see. But so like here, so you could have it, you know, on all 3 of the bands and have that sparkle go throughout. But like you said, for some reason, I just don't like that. Just I tried it before, and I'm like, yeah, no. So you know, we'll just go and fill that in, and the outsides. I don't know why. Then you can always just, you know, trace over carefully. And there we have it. So you'll notice on the step outs that I drawn, there are some options, and this came from an idea from a class. I'm going to get this wrong. I'll correct it in the notes if I have it wrong, but I believe Sonia Yenser, who's a CZT also, and she came up with a class called 14 Shades of Gray, and it's a really, really neat class, and she used jetties, and it was a fantastic idea. So I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it right here. So drawing that, I'm I'm going to draw the center band first on this one. And again, I'm going to keep it a bit on the wider side. And then I'll draw the associated bands. And sometimes it's easier just to, if you have your center band, then you can aura the other bands, and it works well. But what she did was come up with some fill-ins. And I have some other classes that I teach where I do that, and have where you create sections and you fill them in. And that's what we're going to do here. So this one, we'll do Shattuck in the center of this one. And that one I start with a curved line. I usually start it in a corner like this and then work backwards. Then I turn the tile, and I'm going to have the curve go kind of the other direction. But then I start from my previous start section. I'm great at not making any sense sometimes. And then I like to work backwards. I've found that is how Shattuck works best for me. And then so here where I started, I'm going to start again, and I'm alternating the curves. So I'm going to duplicate the first curve I did. So starting here, and then I'm going up with the curve in that direction, and then working backwards, filling in. Then I'm going to turn it again. So you can use any tangle that you can do on a small scale like this, and do in a row. And sometimes when I've done this before, let's see, and then this one I kind of have to make it up. So this one I'm just because I want to fill in this little bitty section here. Yeah. So that looks kind of cool, right? And so for this pairing, it's kind of fun to have some traditional jetties that just have the bands, and then throw in one or two. I'm going to come over here because I love doing flux in these, and sometimes just because, and I may have to move to my 005 if it's handy. Oop, there it is. I haven't used it in a while. Let's test. Oop, yep, good. Nope, where'd it go? And I like to do, this is more of Rick's version of flux, and I'll alternate it. So I'm just, doing those leaves. And so I come up, so here's one little, they kind of look like, sort of like teardrops. And then, I'm bending this one this way. See, the tip of this has gotten a little smushed. Oops, that way. I alternate my starting point. And then, it kind of turned out a little sloppy. And hey, another course correction, if I don't like this one, guess what happens to it? We just fill it in, and it works great. My favorite part of this is the line dot or line dot dots in the center. You do what you can fit in there. And then we fill in with little orbs. Oh yeah, this tip has had it, but that's okay. It's sort of coming through. You can barely see the little orbs, but they're there. Yeah, I might just color that one in later. I don't know. We'll see. It's one of those, wait to see, when it's all done, wait and see. And, like I said, you can always fill it in. Now, some of these smaller orbs, we could just color those in all together. Could also have some fun with adding some color if you wish. Traditionally, of course, in Zentangle, we just stick with black and white, and that's more on the, say, the method side of things. because, you know, using this as a relaxation tool, my phone is going off. You know, we want to have less thought and, you know, more drawing. But we can also have a lot of fun as well, and, you know, using some of the gel pens and whatnot. Is fun. Now, I have this issue, so I'll hold this up here, where my orbs, and this is why we call them orbs, because circle just adds too much pressure. I have a couple here where and it's usually because I'm going too fast, where they don't line up, or I call it like a pigtail, because usually it ends up inside and it has a little curve. So that's where, again, course correction. I'm going to make my center band right through there, because then as I'm coloring it in, I can kind of reshape a little bit. Or, better yet, we just make this one a solid color, because then we can fix it all together. And sometimes, you know, coloring in solid, I'll leave a little spot open so that way it looks shiny. Actually, I'm going to add another little one here, and leave them. Actually, I think this one I'm going to make. So sometimes if you know, I start out with the center and then I end up a little too wide. Oh, actually, then I can do my other band here, another band here. There's always a way. If you do something and you're not completely happy with it, there's always a way to do something else. So this one I just did a zigzag, and then in one side of the zigzag in these triangles, I'm just drawing some little straight lines. I think this is a tangle. I have to research and find what the name of it is. There's one called Avriel that is, it has more steps than that, but it's on that, let's like a starting point, kind of on those lines. I think I'm going to go back to the idea of doing a center one and then just thickening the center one. Well, you could also, just as a thought, still do, using like the 01 pen, you could go back like this, and so I have an 08 also, and then just trace that line with the 08 to make it a little darker. You notice I flip back and forth. It's like I aim to just, you know, kind of flip once and go with it, but sometimes I don't. And just filling these in. I think this one will make this one solid. And sometimes too, like this one, I was deciding, well, how I have a ending point there that you know, like this one here as well, that I'm not really caring for. And sometimes, you know what, it's just best to just go, okay, whatever, and just keep going and not worrying about it. And I'm going to color this one in. And then just a couple more. So, you know, a lot of times I do change up the order that I'm doing things, and that's, you know, and it's one of those fine thing to do. So I'm leaving that little sparkle bit in there. You can decorate these however you like. I mean, if you don't have room for essentially three bands, I mean, you could just do one if you like. So some of mine are a bit oval-ish, so they kind of look like Easter eggs, which, hey, makes this a very versatile tangle. If you were wanting to decorate something, you could. Let's see, I'm going to do this. Oh. This way. Sometimes I think it depends on the shape of the orb on how I attack, adding in the bands. And I share that with you just so you know that it's okay. This one I'm going to do, and I know this is a tangle, and I apologize for not having the name. I'm usually good with the tangle names. This one is kind of like a curvy line, and then you aura each side. Some of them are kind of tricky to do small. But that looks cool. I also share that, there's sometimes no rhyme or reason. It's okay to change things up because, and I think especially with art, we have this, maybe it's an expectation that, we should do things perfect, and do things perfect the first time. And, I don't think art is like that. Life is certainly not like that. So now we'll move to some shading. And, there's nothing to be said that you can't add more orbs or anything afterwards. Now there's a couple ways to shade. Let's see, I tried it 2 different ways in the 2 different sessions that I did. Well, let's see, and I'm trying to think if there's a third way I want to try it. But I really like the second way I did, and I'll share the other ones that I did. So I just think that this one was really fun. So here's you see your center here, and I'm going to put some graphite. Oh, you know what? Let me back up really quick. If this is the first video that you're watching, and it might be because this is the first video that I'm doing, you turn your tile over, and mine is going to be sideways to what your view is. And a lot of times I will, on the back, or if you're using a sketchbook or something, just on the back on a scrap page, lay out some graphite because it's good to test. And then grabbing your tortillon. And I use little circles, and I hold it here in the pocket of my hand, and I just stretch it down with little circles. Because my aim is to have a nice gradient, and even like right here, I can still see the line of graphite. And so what's kind of fun, so make sure my hand is out of the way, is to see just how far can you drag that amount of graphite down to where it's really blending in to the original tile. And again, my personal aim is to have a really, really nice smooth gradient. And so it's a good idea to just test it out. And depending on the paper you're using, I'm using obviously an official Zentangle tile. This is the 3.5 square, the original tiles. But depending on the paper you use, like I use cardstock a lot of times, or just a sketchbook, or even if you have the apprentice tiles. Each piece of paper is a little bit different, and it's a good idea to test it out so that way you see how much graphite you have to lay down to move it. You can always add more, but if we follow the the Zentangle method idea of no erasers. It's better to go light and then add some if you want, versus the other way. And personally, while, it's like, of course, no one's going to tell you, there's no Zentangle police anywhere that, are going to say, hey, no eraser. It's just, to me, it's a challenge. And just like life, there's no erasers in life, even, as much as we really wish, there are no do-overs, right? So why not challenge ourselves in Zentangle to also have no do-overs. I mean, you can do something again, and you can always change how we do something, but there are no do-overs. So I've put some graphite, just so the first stroke in each section, I put some underneath each of those. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw it down. And I'm just going to draw it down a little bit. I don't need it to, smooth into nothingness. I like to do that just as a test, just to see how far. But I'm working to not get any graphite in the section above, or the section to, the section, the section in the next section is what I want to say. But that doesn't make any sense. For instance, right here, where, here's where my graphite is, and there's a bit of, open space here. I don't want to get it into that other section. So I'm working to not do that, because that then interferes with the effect that we want to have. And our aim in Zentangle for shading is really, it's all about contrast, it's all about pop. It is not about worrying about light source or anything like that. We just want to make a really cool effect, and that is it. And so, as you can see, just from doing that one row, how amazing that is. And gosh, I almost want to just leave it there. And actually, I think I might. For that, what I did in another one, which I'll show you in a minute, is I did some additional sections. Actually, well, let me take that back and let me show you now. So in this one, I did just like we've done here, and I did around just under the first stroke in each section, and then I counted down, I think, four from the center, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I did another. So underneath that, 1, 2, 3, underneath the fourth stroke in each section, I did another one, and then I went around the perimeter. And I went around the perimeter quite a bit darker, because I like to do that, than I did in these initial sections. But what's neat to do, and actually I think I did go back and darken a little bit. So yeah, so what's neat to do is, do it. So like this is kind of light to begin with. Continue with what your idea is for shading, and then you can always go back. And this is playtime. So I'm going to leave this one just so it's different. I'm going to leave that one with just that first row, and then I am going to go around the perimeter. And again, because I know that I want it dark, and I'm following my border line with this. Normally, we allow the borderline, which it did disappear essentially, into the tangle, and we don't worry about it. But sometimes it's fun to just take your graphite and lay it all the way around that perimeter. I had some people in classes that they just really needed to outline, take their border and have all the lines be in black, and it's like, well, yeah, I mean, you can do what you want to do. It's your tangle, but we generally don't. And then we'll coloring the jetties is easy. So I'm just bringing this in a little bit. I want to keep the darkness so I have a great contrast. Because the where it's dark is where it is going down essentially. So we're making this kind of 2D, adding some depth, as if it has the ability to sink into the paper. Or like, I like to do card making, and so, we will layer things, and so, the effect that I'm essentially trying to get is where, as if this was a border that I made separately and was cut out, and I've then rested it upon, the top of this with some foam tape. That's in my mind, that's the look that I'm going for. Yeah, and so how neat is that? How neat is that? And in order to have contrast, you have to have some, leave some of the original color of your tile, regardless of what color it is. This is the white tile. If you're using a Renaissance tile, you could add some white charcoal in places to make it really pop. And some other videos will for sure do that. But I think that looks really, really neat. And amazingly, this center looks whiter than the rest, even though I didn't touch any graphite in here. It's just, it's been brought in a lot further, where in the center, it's pretty, I did a pretty good job of being, of not getting any graphite into that center, so that you can tell the difference. So for the jetties, it's real simple. You can just lay some graphite, and actually, depending on how much shading you've done, you can use some of the graphite that's already on your tortillon, already. And I will do that a lot of times with some of these smaller ones. And so we're just doing like a C, like on one. If you have a bigger jetty like this one, I think I'm going to put a little bit on the other side. And it is literally just a little bit. And they're just shading, like I'm saying, this one. And I'm going kind of on, that would be perpendicular to the bands, which then helps to, accent the roundness of it. You can do it, and you could just do it on one side if you wish. Some of the larger ones I'm going to just do both sides. But what we want to do, and this one, notice I'm not doing the little circles. Sometimes I don't, sometimes I just, use, whatever motion I'm looking for. The little circles are nice for spreading it down. With this, I don't necessarily want it in. I want to leave this little bit of white here in the center. And this, I'm using some of the graphite that I've already laid down here from the border. Shading is also another nice course correction opportunity, because sometimes when we shade, like here, I'm still not totally digging the flux that I did. I've done nicer, but when you shade, you don't notice it as much, and it's okay. And sometimes you just got to lay down a little bit. Using the side of the pencil also. Apologize for not mentioning that before. Or at least just doing it light. Because what you want to avoid is a harsh line of pencil. And if you're using original Tangle tiles, then, and actually, some of these little ones, I'm going to shade the whole thing just to kind of sink them down a little bit. That just occurred to me. And there we have it. That looks kind of cool. Then, as always, we, finish up with putting, you want to initial the front, so you kind of figure which way do you feel is up. I mean, there is no up, really, but there's a lot of times there is a place, and you can either, I'm going to put my little chop right here in the corner. Sometimes it's fun to, if you can hide it inside, but as I mentioned, there's a different, this was one I did yesterday, and I shaded the Betweed a little bit different. This one, I went along the spokes, and brought out the graphite into each section just a little bit, so that way each section is curved. And that's another neat effect. I did a little bit around the perimeter, but not as heavy. I wanted the focal point, the heaviest, to be those spokes, and it really comes off neat. And again, this one I did multiples, and this I think I might actually go back and darken, because it's kind of like, this is kind of looking all gray except for the center. So I'm thinking I might just darken this a little bit. Again, this is all for contrast. Let's just see what happens. See, and because I've already spread the graphite quite a bit, I'm just making it again so I don't have that harsh line. That one, I think I went in a little bit. So sometimes these tortillons, they get, this one is a little old, and I have this little tip on it. That's okay. Even neater. And this is why, because it's just so amazing. Being a non-artist person, I am continually amazed at, because of the method that Rick and Maria came up with, and the simplicity and clarity of the step-outs, just the amazing things that someone like me, who is not an artist, I don't feel like I could draw stick people to save my life, can accomplish by utilizing their method and just being able to follow instructions, and throwing in a little creativity. So I hope you enjoyed this. Whoops, I just noticed a little space. That's why it's good to hold things out, and I see where I have just a pencil line and no smudging of the graphite. There we go. But yeah, so if you like this, I'd love to hear your comments. If you have a request for tangles, that would be, that's lovely as well. And yeah, and we'll look to see you next time. If you do some tangles, I'm trying to think the best way to share them. I'll find a way. You can always I'll put my email in the comments box there, and you can always email them to me, and we'll add them to a gallery on the website. So thanks for joining. Appreciate your time, and would love to see the creations that you've made. Have a great one.